All right, everybody, welcome. My name's Brian. I'm on the team here at Canoe Club, and I want to welcome you to our first video version of On and Off the Clock. Today, we're joined by Richard Weston and Ian Wade, both from Visvim, working out of the LA branch of Visvim, and then our very own Bob Lamey from Canoe Club. We're going to talk shop today, talk some clothes, talk whatever comes up. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we get going. We keep letting people in here. Obviously, we're all probably pretty familiar with Zoom by now after a couple months of everybody Zooming together. So just keep your microphones and video cameras turned off while we do this, please. And we're going to have some question and answer at the end. So if you guys have questions that come up during the conversation, just fire them in the messages in the chat direct over to me here. I'm under the Canoe Club user with the little pinky swear there, the white avatar. You can put them straight in there. You can also put them straight in the chat. Just send them to everybody. And we'll get through those as many as we can at the end here. We're going to have a little structured conversation at the beginning, and then we're going to do those guys at the end. So if you got questions that come up, just sit tight, fire those over in chat. Keep the mutes and the videos quiet while we're going, and we will hand it over to Bob, Richard, and Ian. Bob, it is all yours.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate that. Hello, everybody. As Brian said, now you figured it out. My name is Bob Lamey. I'm one of the founders of Canoe Club. In addition to being one of the founders, I also am one of the buyers for Canoe Club, along with one of my other partners, Timothy Grindle. When Timothy and I go out to buy, obviously we love clothing, which is how we got into this business. It's what drives our passion. We love looking at collections. We love looking at detail and craftsmanship. But the thing that we really, really enjoy at the end of the day is getting to know the people behind the brands, getting to know designers and all the people that drive the vision and everything else. And that's what really excites us, and that's what we love to do. You know, today, this is our first live chat, so bear with us on bugs and everything else and nervousness. But we're really honored to have as our first guest, Richard Weston, Ian Wade, people I've come to know well, people who we've had these conversations that I just referred to numerous times, sort of after hours. They're from the brand Visvim, which is one of our favorite brands. You know, just a little quick couple sentences about how favorite a brand it is. We are a retailer here at Canoe Club, and we are a retailer for Visvim, which means that we can order Visvim and bring it in for us. And you know, when you own the store, you get a little bit better deal. At the same time, Ian could probably tell you that I still remain certainly not their best customer, but I'm still an avid full retail price paying Visvim customer. So that's the background on that. So we are really honored to have them here. We're really flattered that they chose to do this with us. So before we get started, just a real quick question. You know, how are you guys doing? Is everyone staying healthy? And yeah, everyone's staying healthy in this time?
Yeah, keeping on well here. Really just things are pretty calm, and everyone's being really nice and mindful in Los Angeles. So things are pretty good here.
Surprisingly, yeah. The air is very clean in Los Angeles right now.
Yeah, for a change. How about it?
In the world lately.
Yeah.
Wow.
People are staying home and staying healthy.
Good to hear it. Are things starting to open up out there? Here in Boulder, where they're starting to loosen restrictions. And so we believe that it's going to be soon that we can open up the doors.
Yeah.
We're offering curbside pickup for retail stores, including clothing. So there's some non-essential businesses that are starting to open up. Got it.
Yeah, it's feeling better here. There's actually traffic. It was actually hard to find a parking space today, which is a sign that Boulder is coming back to life. All right, gentlemen, so we can get started. One of the first question I've got, you know, which is sort of a really basic place to start, but is there a mission or a cause at the heart of Visvim?
Yeah, I think, yeah, the mission or like the origin, you know, as I know it, is that Hiroki was not able to find a consumer products that he was really excited about, but it would often find in older garments, there would be elements of the production of them that would really excite him, like how sort of comfortable and soft, like leather ages, or like denim, how it feels after being sun faded and washed 100 times. So he was, really pushing to make product that he was excited about. And, it started, over 20 years ago. And to this day, the core of that's sort of the same. It's just all about the processes that we use and the, fabrics that we develop from the yarn up, and all the attention to these details is, really what makes the product great and kind of keeps him pushing in the same direction with kind of the same vision. So
yeah, it's like an ongoing developmental journey for him. He's been a collector of like vintage things that he often speaks that it gives off a certain energy. So I think he tries to explore his own way of recreating that feeling in certain products that are, of particular interest to him.
Ian, I heard you say yarn up in there, which is something I've seen when I've read a lot about Visvim in the past. Can you elaborate a little bit on what yarn up means?
Yeah, I mean, presently a lot of what the collections are about is about creating fabrics and working with specialized mills down to the yarn. So Hiroki will use vintage fabrics as references and really pick apart how things were made, what types of materials were used in that. So you'll see yarns that we create that have up to like 5 different elements, from like silk to linen to cotton to wool. So that's really an interesting part of the line, because it's expressed through each collection. As fabrics are coming to development, we're able to like plug them into the line in these silhouettes that are pretty consistent across the seasons. So they're all based on reinterpretations of classics, like a flight jacket or type of boot or whatever it is. But whatever fabric or leather treatment we're working on, when that's ready to go to production is when you see it in collection. So it really drives a lot of what's really interesting about each season, and where you see the variety.
So does yarn up, I mean, it's a complicated process. Does that inform price, affect price?
Yeah, indeed, it does affect price, because with anything that involves customized development, customized elements to its production, added layers. It's special projects for a lot of these suppliers we work with. So it's sort of on the side, it's low volume, it's their works in progress.
Right.
So it does indeed drive price all the time, actually.
I can imagine. It reminds me, actually, I have one of my dear friends is a master sommelier named Ken Fredrickson out of Chicago. And he and I have had this conversation time and time again about the similarities between, how do you get from a $20 bottle of wine to a $2,000 bottle of wine? It doesn't make you more or less drunk or a better drunk. It's about the story, and it's about, who this winemaker is and where their vines come from and all the history that goes into it. Or a great chef, for that matter, when somebody, if you're hungry, you can get a slice of pizza. If you want a great meal, it's about, if you're going to pay that money, it's got to be the story behind it. Who's the chef? How did they source their product? Where do they get their, it's all about that. And it delivers because it's unbelievably satisfying, but it also just becomes about a love for the details and how something has moved along, the progression of it. So that's pretty cool. Ken and I have had that conversation numerous times, and now he's a closed source, and also, by the way, a Visvim customer. So a question I've had is, when Visvim ended up on my radar, it came to me more or less as a streetwear brand, and at least that's where I saw it first. And not to say but that's where I saw it first. But at the same time, I'm in my 60s, and as I'm somebody who also buys Loro Piana or Cucinelli, but I'm also a huge Visvim customer. So I'm wondering, do you think in a way, like being identified, or I don't want to say pigeonholed, but as streetwear, did that hurt in a way with maybe price? Because I think when I think of you as a luxury brand or alongside other luxury brands, I think it's appropriate. I think that, that's where it belongs. And then when I think of it that way, I think of actually Visvim as value, but what you get,
you know, certainly presented some challenges. I think just like any young business, in the beginning, it was reliant on his personal network. I mean,
Mhm.
we're still not a huge company, but it started off as 3 people. There was an individual who had a network of international sales experience, or she was put in charge of sort of expanding our brand
Mhm.
through people she knew, and that happened to be in a lot of independent, what are known as independent streetwear boutiques
Mhm.
at the time. So that was the early beginnings of Visvim. So people who have knowledge of or exposure to the brand tend to kind of categorize it into that world. But we as a brand, we do understand that categorization can help contextualize a little bit.
Mhm.
But for us, it's strictly about the product. And I think therefore now it can cater to many different demographics or different perspectives. Like you mentioned, certain luxury elements, those are part of our brand now. So there are styles that we still make to this day that were part of the early offerings at these streetwear stores too.
Mhm.
But a lot more has happened since then. It's a continuous story, and I think the brand sort of caters to a range of different people, a range of different stores.
Right.
So as
Interesting.
long as you're able to kind of keep an open mind about it, that it's like a product brand rather than a brand that associates itself with any kind of subcultural influences.
Right.
It'll keep it fun for all kinds of people, less restrictive.
Yeah.
Got it.
I'm always surprised to see the variety of people who are coming into stores and what different people are excited about within the brand, because it has become such a wide offering, from footwear to outerwear, that it's really cool to see where people's points of interest are within the brand. Everyone has a different starting point in terms of what got them excited and like what styles they are always looking for. And it varies, but yeah, there is still a strong streetwear customer as much as there is people that appreciate the like luxury artisan side of what we do in our production. It's cool evolution, I guess, from streetwear.
Yeah, we've had customers here, and actually, again, sort of in my age bracket, where they come in and maybe it is the first time they see Visvim, and they'll ask a question about it. And this one particular customer I'm thinking of, he happened to be wearing Cucinelli. And I said, Cucinelli, right? And he said, yeah. And I said, all right, well, I'm more aligned to them. And he was like, I get it completely. I mean, I get it. Let's go. So, and he's also a customer. So along that will align with luxury brands. So a lot of luxury brands in recent years, and I want to be careful how I ask this question, brands I grew up with, as a lover of clothing, like a Balenciaga or others, a lot of these guys, in an attempt to reach a broader audience or a younger audience, have, really relied heavily on logo and, just trying to expand that way. Has that ever been a temptation? I mean, I know you guys do some logo stuff, but it's not like some of the luxury brands that I'm talking about, without naming anybody specifically, because I respect what they're doing. But has that ever been a temptation for you guys to try to reach a broader audience or a younger audience? Or I know we just touched on age, but broader audience.
Well, I myself am in charge of international sales and expansion and development of markets. So obviously, there's been numerous opportunities for us as a brand to sort of participate in that level of expansion. However, I think, and I think Ian mentioned with the mission statement that Hiroki yearned for sort of an excitement about products. Mm-hmm. I think one of the reasons he started Visvim was that he personally feels it's quite difficult to like really redefine collections or product offerings every 6 months. Mm-hmm. And as a result, that kind of ends up relying more on marketing. It becomes less about the product. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, I don't think he's ever been willing to compromise that mission or the motivation to how he started Visvim. So that kind of just drives everything we do.
Right.
It's quite organic. I think, yeah, we never intentionally try to exploit. We just sort of stay in our lane, and some people take interest. And, you know, we have a group of like fairly well-known clients in the world, in the global world. Some of the styles that they choose to wear tend to become more popular, you know, just because of the exposure they provide it. But we don't gift any product to anybody, so everybody's buying their own product.
I love that. I'm also glad you said exploit. I was trying to avoid it, but that's what I was thinking the whole time. So you also mentioned marketing. It occurs to me you guys really don't do any marketing beyond just having great product and word of mouth, or?
Yeah, I think, you know, there is sort of a subtle marketing strategy here. It's sort of the anti-marketing method. We just kind of focus on what we do, and we come up with these, they're kind of internal terminology, like yarn up, or, you know, natural dye is something we did, and hand sewn Goodyear welt. Goodyear welt is obviously a very technical, you know, it's a process associated to footwear, but ours are hand sewn. So we come up with these little terms that seem to catch, and that kind of organically just becomes our marketing. So I think we do rely on word of mouth. He seems to have some kind of magical touch with coming up with these little names that describe his processes.
Right.
I think the reputation of the product kind of becomes what is the marketing tool, you know, in some capacity. It's like people see it or feel it, or go into the store and experience it, and that's like what gets passed on down, you know, like you're saying, word of mouth, just down the line. It's cool to see.
I agree, and it's actually, you can have all the catchphrases you want. If the product doesn't deliver, you might sell them something once, but you're not going to sell it to them twice. And I tell people here, if they have an addictive personality, be careful, because you're probably going to buy a bunch of it once you get going. So what relevance does vintage cars and motorcycles have to do with the culture of the brand?
You know, I think there's like an aesthetic appreciation of you know, that the lifestyle of that time. So, you know, what you see in like lookbooks and a lot of like just kind of photos of Hiroki out and about and such, you know, all the like cars and motorcycles are ones that he owns and maintains and drives and uses regularly. So, you know, it's kind of like a reflection of his own, you know, life and the things he appreciates. And in vintage cars and motorcycles, you see a lot of resemblances in the brand, in like attitude and functionality.
Yeah, and he's very fond of like the process of aging and patina, which is applicable to leather as well as, you know, paint jobs on certain old cars. He prefers not to buy refurbished cars. He likes original, just because the way the paint ages over the years, and kind of gets inspired by that and tries to trickle that into his product creations.
One of the things, I mean, I've seen a lot of the Instagram and pictures of him in cars and a lot of vintage Porsches. What it sometimes makes me think about is like the 911 itself, and that here's this car that's been around, you know, 50 years, that changes and keeps improving, and whether it's faster or longer or leaner, but it's really still pretty much the same car. And you know, a 911's a 911, and you can, you know, trace that provenance or that development iteratively. But it's still a really cool car, and I kind of think of that also with some of the product that you guys do, that it's traditional, but continues to evolve. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, Porsche is definitely a good comparison.
Yeah.
Comparison to the product for sure. But yeah, I mean, what makes a Porsche is all the parts of it, and it's the same thing about Visvim products.
I like that.
Obviously, you made the cars made enhancements along the way to sort of keep up with the times. So, what we do is definitely not like reproduction. It's inspired by classic pieces, classic garments.
Right.
However, we're sort of reinterpreting and trying to introduce our own spin on some of those classic pieces.
Right. Richard, this actually reminds me of a conversation we had. You talked once that Hiroki was once asked about Visvim in 5 to 10 years. Is that, can you share that or?
Yeah. So he often gets asked where he sees the brand going, and he has a pretty simple answer. He says, I'd like to see Visvim collections in vintage stores.
Yeah.
So perceived in a way that, that it'll stand the test of time. They become sort of iconic pieces, and people hopefully get inspired by them down the line.
Cool. Any memories stand out from either of your times at Visvim?
Yeah,
You hear
plenty, but
Yeah. I had a time once where I was with, I just showed up at the office shortly after I started working with the brand, and I don't know, I was dropping out paperwork or something, but they were like, hey, we're doing this, there's this interview happening later today. If you want to hang out, we could probably use a hand or something. So I stuck around, and it was our friend, David Kenji, who did an interview that was on the site Macon, where Hiroki was like, we basically went to like cafe in Hancock Park near where our offices were, and they just kind of chatted. But we were set, getting up for it, and he was planning to drive his old like 50s Porsche, and it had been in the garage for a little bit, and we started it up, and he was having issues, and kind of immediately knew what was wrong. He was saying like, oh, it's the carburetor just needs a little more gas. Pops the trunk and pulls the thing apart, and we go get gas from his motorcycle, and within like 30 minutes or so, the car's running, they're driving on the way, and it was just really cool to see someone who's like, in the fashion design, also have such a hands-on knowledge of all the things that bring him kind of like inspiration. And
Oh wow.
It was cool, as I learned more about the brand. It's like the processes that he uses are ones that he, by his own hands kind of like figures out how to do. He actually does, learns how to stitch moccasin, and then that becomes, incorporated into the collection. And different elements of dyeing are the same way. And, all these different really artisan practices get filtered in the same way through learning how to do it, and then finding ways to filter it into your collections. So that was really stand out, especially early in the starting to work for the brand. It was really cool. So
Yeah, that's cool. The parallels. Richard?
yeah, I've got one too. Trying to just keep things in perspective. We show our collections twice a year in Paris during Fashion Week, where we meet with people like you. And during the early years, we threw this huge sushi dinner. I know it sounds just like extravagant and whatnot, but there was a deeper intent and meaning with it. It's sort of to provide perspective with what he is trying to achieve with Visvim. But I think the common perception with sushi, which is pretty well known by now, is that the fresher the fish, the better, perhaps. But something like that. So one of his favorite sushi places in Tokyo incorporates a style called Edomai, which is the old name of Tokyo. So from the Meiji era, 150, 200 years ago. And the head sushi chef there incorporates this old style of, it was used to transport fish from the bay to feudal lords who live in the mountain, like samurai lords. So what you would do is you take a block of tuna and place it in between sheets of ice to sort of preserve it during its transport for that. and it undergoes this sort of change and process where it enhances the flavors of the fish. It doesn't look like what we would typically associate red tuna to look like. It sort of browns and changes flavor and stuff like that. So he brings this chef to Paris, and we throw this dinner, and the intent was, this is what we're trying to do at Visvim. Like, we take some of these older methods and practices, but try to apply them to modern day use and introduce sort of like a new side to that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's this chef doing this old world method, but clienteling like modern day people, and we're sort of doing the same. We take inspiration from a lot of these old techniques, but try to apply it to like modern day use, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. It sounds like mud dye tuna, or like what you do with
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's cool. Well, that's all the questions that I have prepared. Brian, you're out there somewhere in the technological world. Do you want to open this up to people, to Q&A?
Yeah, we got some good questions coming in, actually, guys. There's some good stuff. Actually, I'll combine this because this is two questions from two different folks, but it's essentially the same question. I'll read this first one from Rob. It says, I've been an avid customer for Visvim for about the past 10 years. So my first purchase was either an Elk wallet or the 20L ballistic back in 07. Over the years, my wardrobe has grown, but there's one area of business I've never been able to enjoy because I got big feet. Do Richard Ian know if there's any plans to expand sizes to the US 13 shoes? And Clark asked a very similar question. I'm kind of in the same boat myself here. He says, you guys ever going to do bigger sizes? Tops are always too slim for me. Pants are too short and sometimes too slim. I'm like 6 foot, 185, 190 athletic build. Don't think I'm outside of the norm, but we'd love the looser fit. So you guys want to speak to that at all?
I'll say just about the tops. I don't know much I can contribute about that footwear thing. The tops, I mean, the cuts I think now are leaning towards more like generous, wider fitting. So a lot of what you see in like the coming collections would probably suit someone of that build, just because he's just making things like drop shoulder and cutting things, tailoring them specific ways so that they can be comfortable and loose. So it's out there now. A lot of what you're wanting is probably out there now in some capacity. But maybe Richard might have some insight.
I mean, size 13, I think that could be a possibility. It's been discussed before, so I'll keep it in mind. Thanks for reminding us and bringing it up here. That it's of relevance. So I will certainly, and I think to what Ian said, there are certain pieces that could work for. Did you mention 6 feet 190? The build, something like that, right?
Yeah, 185, 190 athletic build. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think our sizing has become a bit more generous. It could be restricted by style, but there are things that could work for those.
Well, if it helps, I'm a 5'8", 180, so I'm stocky, and I got plenty of room here. So
yeah, I guess we encourage you to reach out to the people at Canoe Club and ourselves at Visvim in LA. Be happy to explain what could fit or what could work for.
Because each piece is, like we said, like based on like a vintage piece that gets kind of like modified. So even if it's a chambray work shirt, like the different versions we make are different cuts. They're either like wider, slimmer, depends. So case by case.
Brian?
All right, we got another one. They're pouring in now, so keep them coming, guys. I don't know if we're going to be able to get through all of them, but we'll ask which ones we can get here. So this is great. So this one, there's been a lot of talk about Hiroki The Man so far. I was wondering how much he is aware of the cult of personality surrounding himself that seems almost undetachable from the brand. There's got to be a design team involved, but does he have the final say on the products?
Honesty, he is the only designer, creative director, and everything. We do have a pretty solid production team that helps execute his vision, but he actually is in charge of all designs for every collection.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's the real deal. That's what you're saying. Great.
I don't know. I mean, like the kind of like cult-like status. I mean, I think he's pretty, you know, ambivalent and you know, aloof to the fact that, you know, maybe he has got such a status. He just kind of like is in his own channel, you know, almost with blinders on, living his way. You know, it seems.
That's cool. Brian?
Yeah. All right. So let's see another one here. This one says the 45R or the AKA 45 RPM. Have the two renowned Japanese brands shared a relationship in any way? And how would you differentiate the two brands?
A relationship, meaning is there like an active relationship or a historical one?
It says it's really asking, have they shared a relationship in any way? And how would you differentiate them, I guess?
Okay. No, we do not necessarily have a relationship with them. I think differentiate. 45 RPM is like quite accessible in Japan. It is a bit more of a, I guess you could say, a volume-based business, and their focus is not strictly on denim. They have, you know, several different merchandising layers, I would say, but I think we're more like kind of small production, specialized production, which kind of relates to some of the processes we touched on. I hope that answers.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say that people will make that relationship a lot. I don't really know 45 RPM that well, but people do make that reference a lot. So yeah, I think I've seen some of the collection. It's pretty different in my opinion, but I don't know much. I can't really speak to it that well.
Yeah, I guess there's definitely some like Japanese brand similarities. It's essentially like reinterpreted Western clothing through the lens of the Japanese filter.
Yeah.
So they may look similar in that sense.
Okay, we got one from Jack. He just says, are there any Visvim collabs to look out for in the future, or any ones that you can speak to, I should say?
No, I don't think so. Richard might know, but I don't think so.
Probably not in the sense of the word collab that you may be referring to. I think that's something that's of less interest to Hiroki as a creative director. I think there was a time we did that, and that kind of ties back into the question about marketing, you know, with branding and things like that. He feels that it takes away from the pure sort of product side of things when you do collaborative. But I think he's talked about exploring more like collaborative projects with not necessarily other brands, but manufacturers, artisans, dye houses, you know, that sort of collaborative. So perhaps not exactly in the collab terminology that you're using, but
Like a drop, yeah.
yeah, if that's the case, there could be I mean, he might even say we do a lot of collabs still, based on his perspective.
Yeah, working with different production houses and different specialty mills and stuff.
Yeah.
Totally. Because the product goes all over the place before it gets finished, you know. Sometimes one garment will be, you know, transcontinental, just because it's made here and there, and fabric starts somewhere else, all over the shop. You know?
So I think that's kind of like his idea of collaboration lately.
Mm-hmm. Brian, a couple more. What do you think? What do you have time?
I've got a couple more here. So this one is from Max. He's asking, where did the love of Native American symbols come from in your designs?
This, I think, was from the, you know, I think he's got an interest in American culture from, you know, growing up in Japan and really collecting old denim, things like that, and when he started getting out here more, I think he connected with people that just sort of introduced him to the culture of more of the culture of America in that way. So he met Jed Fouts out, who runs Shiprock in Santa Fe in New Mexico, and Jed was really gracious in, you know, taking him places and introducing him to people who are making, you know, products still, and the kind of love of the craft kind of just you see it in the brand in certain ways still. So
Did he make that teepee that's in the LA store?
I think he I think he did a few stitches in it. Yeah, it was all hand stitched. It was like 12, 15 buffalo hides, but all done in Montana by this. One of the last artisans is making them up there, and yeah, he put a few stitches into it, and he was the one who painted them with like natural dye stuff, like natural indigo dye.
Wow.
We have a few of them. They're really cool.
Yeah, I recommend people go see them. They're pretty cool.
Mm.
Ryan?
Okay, so let's see. Let's go with our last one here so we respect everybody's time. This one's actually a good one. It's pretty timely. And I think we can all kind of relate to this too right now. So what do you think how are people going to relate to these luxury goods coming out of a global lockdown like this? What you guys read on that?
Can I answer that? You guys mind?
Please do.
I mean, I think that's exactly what people should be buying. I really do. I think that, you know, for us here at Canoe Club, like our mantra, our ethos, like from the very beginning was we wanted to be advocates for creative people doing really, really cool shit. And, you know, that's how we chose our brands. That's the story we want to tell. In fact, we want to be storytellers. We want to be educators as opposed to, you know, sellers, to be honest. And so, you know, when all of this happened, philosophically, we decided to just stand our ground and say, look, we want to continue to bring in and be advocates for the people doing cool stuff. And then going forward, I think that I would much rather want to invest in a piece of Visvim or other brands that really, you know, pay attention to detail from start to finish, craftsmanship, love, passion, the things that drive their brands. And I think that's where you'd want to spend your money. I think it's about going forward. It's more about pieces that, you know, Richard, as you said earlier, are going to stand the test of time as opposed to disposable fashion and disposable product. And that's personally where I would want to spend my money. And I actually think that, you know, coming out of this unfortunate situation, that's what would get my attention. I would want to get involved in people and products that have value, and love behind their artisanship, behind their craftsmanship. I think that's what I would do. You guys can add on to that, but that's what I think as a retailer, but more than that, really, because that's how I got involved as a lover of clothing, and a lover of all the things that make up your brand. So that's how I view it.
I feel like luxury is a perception of value. So if you find value in that particular experience or goods, you know, whether it's eating somewhere or purchasing some product, you know, you get to define that. So I think people are gonna want it, you know. I guess whether they need it, that's another question. But I do think people are gonna want some kind of like normalcy coming out of this. And, you know, your perception of value helps define who you are. So yes, I do think people are gonna want things that help remind them of their journey or their experiences.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so the things that you know that are perceived as being luxury, you know, you just kind of enjoy the story of them more because they last longer. You get to carry them with you longer, and you know, you have a pair of boots that you've had for 10 years or something. Those have been with you for, you know, quite many phases of your life and could join you for many more. So, all because you made a bit of an investment at one time. I don't know, kind of sentimental for those sort of things. So I agree with both of you.
Yeah, I think that, to put a fine thing on it, it's like, it'd be great if things end up in a vintage shop, and I completely see that. But it's also great, in some cases, you're buying pieces you're going to hand down to your kids that, that are just, again, stand the test of time. So I agree. I think that's all we have time for. I know that, Brian's going to do some housekeeping at the end. I just want to tell you guys thanks. Again, we wanted to be able to have a voice and a connection to our customers during these times. We look forward to continuing to do these things. But to kick it off with you guys, I really appreciate that. Really appreciate you agreeing to do it and taking the time. And I can't thank you enough. So again,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Brian, you want to jump in on anything?
Yeah, thanks guys for your time on this. This was great. And thanks everybody for hopping on and listening. I know we got questions that we didn't get through all of them. These guys love you, man. All these guys, they know the brand, they're following, they're asking really good, intelligent questions. So we try to keep this at a 45-minute deal to keep it short, but thank you guys for asking those questions. If you got stuff that didn't get answered, feel free, hit us up on Instagram. We can keep talking, keep that conversation going there. We're going to get this recording uploaded to the website. It'll get posted on our social media. So follow us or get on our email list and just keep checking back. We'll get this posted when it's done. And then also, if you know anybody who would enjoy this sort of a conversation, please share it around. We want to keep these sort of things going. If you have comments on brands that you'd like us to talk to, we're open to all this. So this is just a new thing that we're trying out. Give us your feedback. Let us know if you liked it. Thumbs up, thumbs down. We want to know either way. I know personally this is great. This kind of real stuff is just such a privilege to listen to you guys and to hear your angle on stuff like that. So thank you guys all for coming, and we'll talk to you all again soon. Thanks, everybody.
Cool. Thanks again, guys. Take care. Peace.
Take care.